I've been addicted to many things in my lifetime. A few examples include skateboarding, nicotine, marijuana, but none of those can even compare to one addiction: anime. In just 1 year, I have seen over 100 anime, including the bad, the good, and the mid. In this video, I'll be covering this monstrous amount of anime, going through each individual show and ranking them on a tier list. And for anime with multiple seasons or specials, I'll be compiling them into just one ranking, just to organize them a little better. So without further ado, let's begin the video. A Place Further Than the Universe was a very intriguing anime, in the sense that it taught me that no matter the odds, if you put your mind towards something, you can make it happen. It was pretty chill, which can sometimes bore me, but in this case, it served as an anime I could watch before I went to sleep. But even then, I'm not the biggest fan of cute girls doing cute things, and I found the comedy aspects of the show to not really be that funny. So because of that, it goes into the B tier. A Silent Voice is, without a doubt, my favorite anime movie of all time. I couldn't find a single thing wrong with this film, nor its manga counterpart. Everything about it, the characters, story, and animation are all just perfect in my opinion. I found that I could resonate with the story, not the specific situation the characters are in, but more the emotions and such that are thrown around, and for me, that's the most important part of the anime experience. S tier. After the Rain really had a lot of potential to be a good anime, despite the most glaring aspect being a high schooler being in love with a 45-year-old man. It's weird, and although there's no actual relation between the two that goes past friends, it just kind of reminded me of the EDP situation. Apart from that, it's just kind of boring. The characters just seem kind of bland, apart from Masumi. C tier. Aharen-san is the only anime to have an accurate representation of a Japanese dude. Apart from that, it was just boring. I would rather watch the acting from a porn video than watch this shit again. D tier. Angel Beats was an anime that I saw all over top 10 saddest anime that will make you jizz and shit yourself at the same time because they are so sad. Oh my god. But for me personally, the characters were just too unrealistic for me to feel sad watching them. But it was pretty good and had an interesting premise and cool twists and turns along the way. But I wouldn't put it past pretty good, so it's going into the B tier. It took me a while to properly get into Assassination Classroom, including dropping it after episode 7 until a co-worker told me to pick it back up. And I'm glad I did. What I found watching this anime was that it had high highs and very low lows. The premise was pretty fucking cool and very different from most anime, and when it was a serious or emotional scene, I found myself pretty invested. But when it wasn't any of those, it was just kind of it just seemed kind of boring in the more quiet episodes, and the comedy just amounted to screaming equals funny, like my older videos. Just don't watch those, even I fucking hate them. Assassination Classroom goes into the B tier. Attack on Titan Season 4 and above was very much near perfect, but still consisted of some pretty annoying things within the show. I won't say much just because there's already a shit ton of videos already praising Attack on Titan, most of them being retarded reaction channels that are more annoying than those TikTok live streams. But apart from that, Attack on Titan Season 4 and above goes into the A tier. The Inner Chamber is another anime that had a lot of potential but just kind of went unnoticed and forgotten due to poorly written characters. And it's a Netflix anime, so that doesn't give it the best reputation already. But it did explore some pretty heavy topics and dealt with them in a somewhat realistic way. And the premise was pretty interesting, but not interesting enough to go past the C tier. Beastars was another anime that took me a while to watch for one main reason: furries. But when I did give it the time of day, I was pleasantly surprised by how intrigued I would become. Despite how weird the animal premise may look, it is actually woven into the story and not just to advocate for furry love. All the characters are pretty well written, except for that one deer cunt. I fucking hate that dude. Legoshi has become one of my favorite anime characters of all time. I just see a lot of myself in him, not the murderous nature within him, not that, no. Beastars gets an A tier. A lot of people will disagree with me, but this is my list. Fuck you. The entire Black Lagoon series is fucking incredible, and if you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend you do. All the characters, the premise, and all the events that happen in the series are so outlandish yet so realistic at the same time. It's just one of the coolest anime I have ever seen. Everything about it was near perfection for me personally, and I really like Revi. Don't ask me why, I just do. A tier. B&A had a lot of potential to be something great, but it just kind of fell face first on the floor with poor writing. It had such an interesting premise with pretty cool characters, but many of the ideas in the show just aren't explored or flushed out at all. Like something cool would happen and you'd think, nice, I wonder how this shit will play out. But then it's forgotten and never brought up again. If it wasn't for Trigger's incredible animation and the designs of the characters, I would have given it a much lower score. B&A goes into the C tier. Bocchi the Rock was another anime I saw a ton of people talking about, saying how good it is, and I agree, it's really fucking good. As a musician myself, a bad one at least, I found myself resonating with the same struggles Bocchi has with music, along with her struggles outside of music as well. The story was simple but interesting, the characters are all unique, and the music actually syncs up with their instruments. I think so, don't question me on that. On top of that, how everything is composed in the anime is so fucking cool and different, whether that be the shots of them playing music or when Bocchi has some mental breakdown. Bocchi the Rock is an A-tier anime hands down. Call of the Night was an anime that caught a lot of hate due to the age difference between a vampire hundreds of years old and a young teenage boy. But as a teenage boy myself, I don't think I'd mind if Nazuna came through my window and was like, so, you trying to fuck? I do agree it's a bit weird, but compared to some of the other shit on this list, it's really not that bad. Call of the Night was pretty cool, the animation was really nice, and all the characters are unique with both their designs and personalities. It had a really cool vibe attached to it, but in some parts it was just a little boring. B tier. Chobits again was another anime I saw floating around on top 10 saddest anime lists all around the internet. And although not as sad as I expected, it was still a really good show. It was an interesting premise with equally interesting characters, one of them easily being mistaken for a sex robot. Not a bad thing. Into what you're into. If I found a sex robot, well, I can't just litter it. That's bad for the environment, you know. The only problem I have with the show is that it could be a little bit boring, with a few episodes being a bit of a drag to watch. So, Chobits goes into the B tier. I'm sorry to whom this will offend, but I thought Chihayafuru was so fucking boring. It just seemed like a worse off version of March Comes In Like a Lion, with both of them sharing many similarities, the most glaring being that they both center around traditional Japanese games. Nothing much to say about it, just kind of mid. Not bad, but not good either. C tier. Originally, I watched Cowboy Bebop when I was first starting my anime addiction, but after rewatching it recently, I realized how fucking good it actually is. Everything about it is fucking incredible. The premise and stories that lie within each episode, the characters and their designs, I can't think of a single bad thing that ruins the show for me. And because of that, Cowboy Bebop is going into the S tier. Death Parade was a show that I saw all over many recommendations lists, and I can see the reason why. I love psychological anime like Death Parade. The high stakes game element was really cool to see, but when it wasn't focused around that high stakes game part, I just found myself a little bored. Still a really good show, but not good enough to get out of a B tier. Descending Stories is another anime that focuses on traditional Japanese shit, in this case it being Rakugo, a sort of comedic storytelling routine. This anime is really good. Not only is it different to how most anime tell a story, that being how it goes from the present to the past, but it actually made me interested in Rakugo itself to the point that I watch it on YouTube, and now I really want to see it live when I eventually go to Japan. Characters are all well written, the premise is super unique, and it's all around a really great show. A tier. Don't toy with me, Miss Nagatoro. Or shit, it was not good. I would rather my breakfast, lunch, and dinner be 5-star dishes consisting of nothing but shit than watch this again. The only good part was sometimes the lighting and animation would look cool, but that's only sometimes. D tier. Dorohedoro, aka the Zuck anime.
Nice job, team.
It's one of the coolest anime I have ever watched. Its extremely bizarre plot set in a dark dystopian world is something that I really like to see in anime. The characters are all pretty cool, and each of them have really nice designs. I really liked this show. There weren't many things I found wrong about it, apart from the CGI. I've really hated how the entire show was done using CGI. In my opinion, it just really looked choppy and didn't really flow well together. And because of that, it's going into the B tier. Ero-manga sensei. I'll just place you there. And yep, okay. You stay where you belong, you fucking disgrace to humanity. Flavours of Youth is yet another anime that had really interesting ideas, but the final product was left with those ideas unexplored to their full potential. All the characters and their individual situations are all real things people can experience. It's just that those experiences aren't really flushed out and feel rushed or unfinished. It's not a bad movie at all. It just feels like it's missing some crucial elements. I will say that the animation is beautiful, but it's not enough for it to go higher than the C tier. From the New World was an anime I saw on a lot of top psychological anime that will make you have an existential crisis. Oh my lord Jesus, what the hell list. But in my opinion, it just didn't live up to those aspects. Don't get me wrong, everything about it is great. It doesn't do much wrong to make me dislike it, but for me personally, this wasn't really a memorable anime. Everything about it was still really cool though, so I'll place it in the B tier. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is hands down the king of shonen anime. Everything about it replicates what a good shonen anime should do and is. I won't say much about it here, but go watch my video on it where I discuss it in its entirety. But for now, it's going into the S tier. Given is another music anime that took me a while to actually watch. This is because I initially thought it was entirely centered around the characters and their sexuality, whether that be homosexual or straight. This isn't a bad thing, by the way, just something I'm not really into when watching anime. But when I actually did watch it, I realized how great this show is. Everything from the relationships formed in the show to the music was really fucking good. The only nitpick I have was that it could sometimes be a little boring, but apart from that, it's a great show and a good watch. B tier. Oh, and they they mentioned Tom York, and you could kind of say that I'm a little bit of a Radiohead fan, you know? Kind of like their music a lot, you know? I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of like their music. Goated band. Tom York pegging Page. Golden Boy, in my opinion, is the funniest anime ever made. Whether you're watching it in Japanese or in English, there is no doubt in my mind that you will laugh at this show. It doesn't take itself too seriously and almost entirely focuses on the comedy aspect, which it does an incredible job of. If you want a more in-depth look at Golden Boy, go watch my video on it. It's S tier because it's the only comedy anime to make me laugh very consistently. It's also a great watch while under the influence of marijuana. Golden Time was an anime that did a lot of things right and it did a lot of things wrong. It just seemed like a more boring Toradora, and I know a lot of people say the opposite, but I don't care. Everything about the show seemed kind of generic, apart from something that intervenes with the main character from his past that I thought was really cool. I won't spoil it, but just know that it's pretty unexpected. But I won't stop it from leaving the C tier, fuck you. Great Pretender is an anime that, when I first saw it on Netflix, I just thought it was gonna be another shitty Netflix anime, but I was wrong. I really liked this anime. I thought its premise was super cool, the characters were all unique, and the situations the characters were put in were all very interesting to see. How it started from petty pickpocketing to this big crime operation was cool, and the ending was also pretty good as well. The only big negative I have with the show was that it felt like it was just missing something, and it was funny to see some more broken English, as it always is. B tier. Hell's Paradise, in my opinion, deserved a lot more love than it got. I thought it was one of the best anime to air this year, but not a lot of people agreed with me. Gabimaru is one of my favorite characters of this year as well. I thought he was super cool, and although sometimes a bit edgy, really interesting dude. The premise was insane, how these criminals just get dropped off on an island with some executioners and come face to face with distressing atrocities was so fucking sick. Some of the ideas I thought weren't well executed or not flushed out enough, but apart from that, it was a great anime. A tier. Horimiya Season 2 was fucking garbage. It was the most boring anime I have seen all year. Nothing fucking interesting happened in it. I know a lot of people will get mad at me for this, judging from its My Anime List score, but I thought Horimiya Season 2 was just an effort to watch. Everything from the characters to the situations that happen in the show are just so bland and generic. And holy fuck, whenever it tried to be funny, I wanted to curl up in a ball and just fade away from the cringe. This anime is worse than a toilet bowl with shit stains left in it. Fuck you. D tier. Hyouka is a goated anime just because it was made by Kyoto Animation, and I love them. This anime was pretty good. I thought the whole mystery aspect was really well done. The animation, as usual by Kyoto, is really fucking good, and I thought all the characters had very diverse personalities, making it interesting to see them progress with their friendships. The only problem I have with Hyouka was that it was kind of boring at times, with some of the mysteries just being really bland, and I wish they did a lot more with Oruki's and Shitanda's relationship. B tier. Josee, the Tiger and the Fish was the first anime film I had watched in a while, and I'm so happy I didn't skip over it. Why more people talk about films like Your Name more than this one is just fucking insane to me, just because of how good it actually is. I thought there wasn't a dull moment in the entire film. It had me intrigued through its entire duration. How they deal with themes such as disabilities, depression, and death, some of the best and most accurate depictions I've ever seen. The two main characters have vastly different personalities, yet are able to form a bond I've never seen in any anime before. The only reason this film isn't an S tier is because it's just below that level that A Silent Voice is. So because of that, it's going in the A tier. Junji Ito Maniac is a Junji Ito adaptation that I had really high hopes for, but it just kind of fucking sucked. Like, remember how I said Horimiya Season 2 is worse than a toilet bowl with shit stains? Junji Ito Maniac is worse than an entire fucking cubicle covered with shit stains on the wall, and it's not flushed either. Everything about this show just felt like a quick cash grab. Most of the stories chosen were Ito's least terrifying works, and the animation and design is just fucking garbage. And when I made a video about it, people actually got angry at me. It was actually good, and I'm just a fucking idiot. But still, it's just not a scary show to begin with. By the way, don't watch that video I made about it. It's just filled with retarded screaming humor. It's just fucking annoying even for me to watch. Junji Ito Mania gets to go into the why does this fucking exist here. Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, for pretty much around 60% of it, was pretty good, but not that good. To be honest, I thought until Sukuna showed up, it was kind of just jizzing me a little too dry, like all those edging memes. Don't get me wrong, the animation is fucking incredible, map is best work for sure, and it's not bad at all, but there's only so much fighting I can personally watch until it starts to bore me. That was until Sukuna shows up and some shit happens to some of the characters. When it felt like there was actually something for the characters to lose was when I actually started to get more excited for each new episode to come out. But I'm putting it in the A tier, even though I thought the first half of the season was a little boring. But yeah, overall, an amazing show. Hubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible is another anime that has aired in 2023, and another anime that was just mid as fuck. Don't get me wrong, I love slice of life romance anime like this, but not this one. Why? It was just painfully boring. Not many situations happened where I was interested in the outcome. It was just a really generic show that you see every single season, but it wasn't specifically horrible either, so it's going in the C tier. Kimi no Totoke is another slice of lifestyle anime that had me sleeping for most of it, although this time the situations the characters were in were a little bit more creative than our previous entry, yet it still followed the same formula. What formula exactly? I would put it on, yep, okay, and fall asleep 5 minutes later. C tier. Magical Destroyers was an anime that aired this year and was a lot different to most anime. That being, every time I watched the opening, it felt like I was having a bad DMT trip, like what the fuck am I looking at here? But I really liked how creative it was with the whole magical girl genre. Everything about it was really weird in a good way. But then again, the actual magical girls in the show got a bit annoying as it progressed through the season, and sometimes shit would happen that would just make me think, oh, are you fucking stupid? What the fuck? It had a lot of potential in the beginning, but just kind of got a bit lazy with the writing as it progressed. C tier. Midori is an anime film that never should have been created. It contains all that good shit, you know, the sexual torture, abuse, animal cruelty, all that shit I loved watching and didn't scar me at all. And besides all that lovely stuff, it was just fucking bad. The writing was horrible, the sound design was awful, the animation was just bad, even though it was made like fucking, I don't know, 300 years ago, so it kind of gets a pass on that. And the whole reason I watched it was just to make a video out of it, but when I posted it, I realized how garbage the video was, and I just took it down. Why the fuck does this exist here? For the suffering of my own sanity. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is without a doubt my favorite slice of life anime of all time. Everything about it is so creative, there's never a dull moment when watching that shit. And no wonder, it was made by the best animation studio of all time, Kyoto. Of course it's gonna be good. Character designs, the premise, and animation are all really good. The only negative I have about the show was some of the characters' personalities got a bit old, but later on I progressed through the episodes. Like Saikawa, she got real annoying real fucking quick. But Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is going into the A tier. This show is great. Mononoke was the first horror anime that I watched that was actually pretty good. It's probably the most unique anime I've watched in terms of literally fucking everything. The trippy visuals add an element of wonder and fascination to the world. The premise is really strange but creative, and all the characters are so otherworldly yet feel so familiar to me. Although these all make this an amazing show, it also added a level of confusion to each episode. It was just kind of hard sometimes to follow along due to how much shit would be thrown into your face without explanation, like you got fucking ADHD or some shit like that. Mononoke goes into the B tier. Monster was the first long anime that I finished in its entirety, and I'm so glad that I did. Monster is probably the best mystery psychological anime there is. The execution of the entire series is just top notch. The progression of each character's mental stability, whether that be backwards or forwards, was a real good representation of humans in real life. The story was just fucking brilliant. All the twists and turns were so unexpected, yet so good that I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. And that ending, holy shit, that ending was fucking satisfying. I don't want to spoil much, but just know I can't find a single thing wrong with this anime. Monster is going into the S tier. Mushi-shi is probably the chillest yet melancholic anime I've ever seen. Its super relaxed style of storytelling made it perfect to unwind to or watch while high. Its premise seems so simple at first glance, but the more I watched, the more I figured out how many layers of complexity this show really had. All the characters and their struggles are told in a really interesting, realistic way that made me really relate to their situations and motives. And Ginko as a main character has to be one of my favorites from any anime of any genre. The only problem I have with the show was that in a few episodes, it was just a little bit boring and wasn't that intriguing, but for the most part, it was incredibly imaginative and a pleasure to watch. Mushi-shi goes into the A tier. I definitely recommend you guys check this one out. Mushoku Tensei was my second ever isekai I've ever watched, and the most recent isekai up to this point. It took me a while to watch just because I think isekai is the shittiest anime genre there is, but I'm so glad I watched this shit. The premise, characters, and animation are all fucking brilliant, and how they tackle varying emotions like depression, regret, and guilt struck a soft spot in my heart that made me really relate to the MC. The only problem I have with the show is that it could be a bit weird at times. Like, I get it, he's a kid in this new world, but his mentality is that of a fucking 40-year-old Discord mod. But apart from that, everything about the show is near perfection in my opinion. Mushoku Tensei goes into the A tier. My Happy Marriage is yet another anime that aired in 2023, and yet another anime that, despite all its strong points, it's kind of made me bored. I am sweating like an absolute pig. Can you see that? Oh my god! Oh! Oh, look at his big stains! He's sweating! Hold on, I'm gonna change my shirt. Radiohead. Don't get me wrong, its depictions of domestic violence and abuse were very battling to see, but whenever it wasn't a serious or action scene, I was just kind of disinterested. Again, it's not a bad show at all, and the animation is pretty fucking beautiful, but I felt like it very could have done more in certain scenes when it wasn't an intense scene. C tier, I just feel like it was missing some more interesting shit. My life as inukai-san's dog. God damn. Watching the show felt like I was burning my pubic hair with a blowtorch. Probably the weirdest anime I've ever seen in a furry growling at you kind of sense. Despite all the bestiality type shit that happens in the show, it's just not good. Everything about it is bad except character designs, and don't ask me why. And I don't know how it was allowed to air on a regular streaming platform like HiDive. Like in one scene, a girl rubs a thing on the corner of a table, and all they did to censor it was cover her thing with a dog paw. Why the fuck does this exist? This is the only category this anime should ever be in. My love story with Yamada-kun at level 999 is again just another generic anime with generic characters. I'm going insane. Nothing necessarily bad, just nothing unique or interesting that makes it a show worth watching. Everything about it would just put me to sleep because of how dull everything about it was. Nothing much to really say about it, just another copy and pasted romance anime you've probably seen 1,000 times. C tier. My Tiny Senpai is an anime on the same level as shit like Nagatoro, so it's gonna be shit. It's a very generic show with very boring and dull characters. The situation the characters are in aren't very entertaining, and the comedy mostly consists of one character says something mildly embarrassing and does that annoying shit, you know what I'm talking about. And with the whole premise surrounding a woman with the body of a 13-year-old excluding something, it's just kind of weird. D tier. Natsume's Book of Friends was another anime that I had dropped after 7 or so episodes due to boredom, then picked it up again and gave it another chance, and I'm really happy that I did. The show is very similar to Mushi-shi in that chill sort of sense, but can get pretty serious or emotional when it has to. All the characters are pretty well written, and the entire premise of the show is pretty interesting. The only negative I have is that a fair few of its episodes were pretty boring, which made it a bit of a drag to watch at times. B tier. Myself Yourself is an anime that generally offended me for multiple reasons, but the main reason being how they handled the theme of suicide. I myself have experienced feelings of suicide before, without one time changing my life forever, and also know people who have attempted it before. And as a result, I take mental health very seriously, but Myself Yourself just took a big fucking shit on it. It was just the laziest display of mental health I've ever seen in any anime, and on top of that, it was just a bad show. All the characters horribly written, the premise had potential, but it turned out poopy caca poo poo. And I just fucking hate the show so much. But it's not as horrible as anything on the bottom tier, so it goes into the D tier. D standing for doo-doo. The show is doo-doo. Oreimo is an anime on the same level as Ero-manga Sensei, but being the sort of underage little sister type of shit that just hurts your eyes to watch. It follows the same gross principles as Ero-manga Sensei and just shouldn't exist. Why the fuck does this exist here? Our Love Has Always Been 10 centimeters apart was just another boring anime that follows all the same storytelling principles as any other generic romance anime. It had some cool ideas, but with the show only being 6 episodes long, it just couldn't express them very well. I will say that it did feel cool to see one of my hobbies, that being videography and filming, being part of the main plot. But apart from that, it's the same as any school romance anime that's kind of just okay. C tier. Paprika was probably one of the coolest anime that I had watched on this list. Its extremely unique plot is driven by mysterious characters and bizarre twists and turns that sometimes made me a little too confused, to the point where it seemed to mess with the storyline negatively. The animation and design of the whole movie is probably my favorite part of it, along with the character designs. It makes for a pretty cool look. The negatives I have about the film is that some ideas that were mentioned felt a little unexplored and not flushed out enough, but still remained as a major plot point, resulting in everything to be just a little bit confusing. But still, I really like this film, so it's going into the A tier. Ping Pong the animation is up there for one of the most underrated anime there is. I just don't hear enough people talk about this show, despite how great it actually is. Initially, I found the animation to be a little bit strange. Everything looks so fluid, and it could sometimes be a bit much, which is probably a big reason people have avoided this show. But as I learned to appreciate it, I realized how well it actually fit into the entire show. Ping Pong's storyline and characters are all exceptional. Everything has a very realistic tone to it, to the point where it made me feel like I could relate to how these characters would feel. A tier. Plastic Memories is yet another anime I saw on all those sad anime to make you really sad lists that just didn't live up to those expectations, mostly because they mostly rely on romance to make you sad, which doesn't really work on me unless it feels specific to situations I've been in. I've not been in love with a robot. I will say it did get a bit sad in certain situations, but I mostly straight-faced that shit like a really mediocre wank. But despite all that, I still found the show really entertaining. Sure, it relied on some cringe-ass tropes sometimes, but it was mostly pretty creative, especially with its unique storyline. Classic Memories goes into the B tier. Pupa is an anime that's almost on par with Midori, except instead of sexual torture, it's replaced with incest and cannibalism. Wow, I love that shit. Who doesn't? Of Midori just being shit from the start, Pupa actually had at least some hope to be a good show, apart from all the incest type shit, fuck that. If you exclude all the real gross shit in the plot, it had a unique story that, if not written so poorly and was more than 5 minutes each episode, could have been really cool, but instead they went with fitting in as much disgusting shit as they could and just completely ignoring any plot progressions the show needed. And despite how fucked up it is, you can watch every episode of it here on YouTube. Pupa goes into the why the fuck does this exist here? Rent-a-Girlfriend was an anime that I saw had a lot of hate surrounding it, but when I compared it to some other popular anime with similar plots, I thought it wasn't that bad. Sure, for the most part, it's no different to any other romance anime ever, but at least it had some aspects that were kind of unique about it, like character designs or even the plot itself. I'm not saying the show is good because it's really just average, but compared to Horimiya, I would rather watch Rent-a-Girlfriend any day of the week, because although generic, it wasn't putting me to sleep, mostly due to the amount of fucking cringe that in that show. C tier, Rakugo's Bad Girls is another anime that aired in 2023, and another anime that is just not very good. It's pretty much like any other harem anime you can find, except with the most dog shit character design I've ever seen in any anime. What the fuck is this shit? This just hurts to look at. Apart from that, it's just pretty bad. Just plain bad. D tier. Romantic Killer is a Netflix anime that's really fucking good, and to my disappointment, it didn't really gain much traction until way after it actually aired. Although it could sometimes be a little bit tropey and a lot of the characters were just generic, a lot of the plot points are really interesting and actually pretty funny. The main character, Anzu, is definitely the highlight of the entire show. Her presence just adds so much to each situation. On top of that, the story itself is also pretty cool and different among all the shit harem anime that come out each season. I really recommend the show if it sounds like your thing. B tier. Samurai Champloo is one of my favorite anime I've ever seen. Everything about the show is fucking incredible, all down to the little details. The opening and soundtrack are the best in any anime. That lo-fi hip-hop soundtrack mixed in with the story's animation and plot goes so fucking well together, man. All the characters have such differing personalities yet work so well together, and all the situations they find themselves in are so intriguing to the point where I couldn't stop watching the show, so I finished it in 2 days. S tier show. Every anime fan needs to watch this shit. Scum's Wish is an anime that I saw caught a lot of hate, but I also thought was just a bit unjust. The show deals with some pretty heavy topics, and I had some people comparing it to School Days due to the theme of cheating and some other shit. But I feel as if those people kind of ignored the realism of how these things are portrayed, like cheating and unrequited love. Why do I think this? Well, because I've been in similar situations, and how they showcase this type of shit is pretty accurate, to be honest. And sure, it did have some generic characters and then some, but all in all, I thought it was a good show that dealt with those type of topics mentioned before in a mature-ish type of way, unlike School Days. Fuck that show. Scum's Wish goes into the B tier. Serial Experiments Lane is definitely the most thought-provoking existential crisis type anime on this list, for very good reasons too. The show is one of a kind and deals with some pretty heavy topics that are both fascinating and eye-opening, but also very fucking confusing, which can be both bad and good depending on who you are. Its story is more complex than Evangelion's ending, with multiple rewatches being necessary to come up with your own conclusion. But this isn't done in a sloppy way at all in my opinion. I think that the story is written incredibly well to make you delve deep to figure out what the fuck is actually going on. It also predicted some things about the future, but have actually and might come true soon. Everything about the show is incredibly complex, but in the best way possible. S tier anime without any doubt in my mind. Skip and Loaf is another anime similar to Kimi ni Todoke in the sense that it's pretty chill to the point where it can feel a bit boring. It doesn't have many stakes in it, which made me feel pretty disinterested in finishing the show. It's not bad at all and does do some good things in it, but for the most part, it's just another forgettable romance anime that hurts my consciousness to write about because I've wrote the same shit for about 20 anime on this list. C tier. Spirited Away was the first and only Ghibli movie I've watched up until this point for no good reason. I'm just really fucking lazy. And although it's the only one I've seen, it's up there for one of the best anime I've ever seen, whether that be movies or shows. Everything about it is incredible. Nothing in it is short of perfection. The characters, the premise, and the entire world it's set in is so creative and unique. It makes me think that whoever came up with it had wrote it right after a DMT trip. Spirited Away is an S S tier movie easily. Spy X Family Season 2 is pretty good. It follows pretty much the same formula as Season 1 does, which proves to be successful every time. The only real negative I have about the show is that I found it a little boring in some episodes just because the whole childcare genre doesn't really interest me, because kids can be really fucking annoying. B tier. Tempuri is probably the best bad anime on this list. It takes the harem genre and sprinkles a little bit of autism onto it, like a snow cone. Nothing about it is much different to most harem anime, except the main character is just so ridiculously horny that it can make for some pretty interesting situations. Don't get me wrong, it's extremely generic and follows every anime trope you could think of, but I like how funny bad it is, along with a couple other things. Tempuri goes into the C tier because at least it was amusing to watch. Terror and Resonance is one of the more disappointing anime on this list, in the sense that it did so many things right, but what it did wrong was done horribly to the point where it just kind of messed with the show. The story was pretty interesting, but was just wrote really poorly. Like, think of the sound a balloon makes when it's deflating. That's what this anime feels like. For the most part, the characters were pretty interesting and unique, except for the main girl. She was just fucking annoying the whole time. The only positives that the animation was really fucking good, and the English scene was hilariously bad. C tier. The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten is another copy and paste romance anime that's neither good nor bad. That's all. C tier. The Dreamy Boy is a realist is the exact same as the Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten. Can you tell? And I'm going insane. The amount of shit romance anime I've seen is starting to eat away at my mental stability. C tier. The Promised Neverland was one of the best and worst anime I've ever seen, in the sense that Season 1 was fucking incredible, and Season 2 was just kind of mediocre. Season 1 was just fucking amazing. Everything about it was so mysterious, disturbing, and whimsical. Whimsical? Like fucking smoking that elder blunt, what the fuck? And so it was just a joy to watch. But with Season 2, a lot of those elements are replaced with straightforward explanations that leave any sense of mystery completely out of the show. Like in Season 1, you would really have to think to put 2 and 2 together to deal with the story, but in Season 2, everything is just explained in a pretty boring way. The direction of the story in Season 2 isn't even really bad, just how they told the rest of the story. The Promised Neverland as an entire series goes into the B tier. The Troubled Life of Miss Kotora is yet again another anime that was just okay. Not bad, not good, just fine. Just a forgettable show altogether. C tier. Future Diary is one of the strangest anime on this list, just because it's so fucking popular, yet so fucking dog shit. The premise of the entire show had so much potential to be really cool, but instead it was just overshadowed by generic anime tropes and poor writing. The same goes with the characters. Most of them could have really been cool and memorable, but instead they went with the overly crazy woman that reminds me of my ex-wife. It's just a bad show, and if you want more coverage on it, go watch Scamboli Review's video on it. That man is a fucking god amongst men. The Future Diary is D tier at best. To Your Eternity was an incredible anime, one of the best I've seen on this list. This coming of age type anime does everything an adventure anime could do right, and then some. Everything in it is so highly produced that it really is just a pleasure to watch, especially all the characters. Every one of them are so unique with their differing personalities. It really feels like they could be real people. And Fushi is just a great main character. I love seeing him progress through each episode. On top of all that, the animation is fucking awesome. The only reason it isn't going into S tier was that it just felt like it was missing something the other S tier anime have. So To Your Eternity goes into the A tier instead. Tomo-chan is a Girl is an anime that a lot of people liked from the 2023 anime year, but I thought it was just kind of generic and boring. C tier. I'm getting fucking tired of all these mid-ass shows, man. For the longest time, I defended the shit out of Tokyo Avengers, and I really do believe Seasons 1 and 2 were really good, but eventually it just kind of got really annoying to watch. I still think everything about it is good, but the characters just kind of got a bit tropey. There's a lot in the series that just doesn't make sense, like their ages, but I still have a lot of love for this show, so I'm putting it in the B tier. Uzuki-chan Wants to Hang Out is again pretty much the same as My Tiny Senpai and shit like that. It follows all the same things, but all those generic romance anime with the tiny woman and the big boobie follow. It's really nothing that special. I'm pretty sure everyone who watches shit like this sees the titties and gets swayed to watch, despite those same bazongas belonging to the woman the size of a young teenage girl. Uzuki-chan Wants to Hang Out is going into the D tier. Vinland Saga Season 2 is probably one of the best follow-ups to an already amazing anime ever. The show's second season took all the same storytelling principles and plot lines as the previous season and gave it the good old Cleveland steamer because it's changed everything I thought I knew about the show. This new, much more chill version of the show was definitely a big risk to take in the story, but yet it proved to be a monumental success. Torthin is just a completely new man. Comparing him to Season 2 to Season 1, it's like comparing weed to coke. It's just two completely different things. It feels like things took a much more mature approach for the characters, as they seem to be much more focused on improving their mentality qualities rather than revenge and needless violence. And although there isn't much violence, the animation is still just fucking beautiful. If you've never seen Vinland Saga, whether that be the first or second season, watch it. It's fucking brilliant. S tier easy, without a doubt in my mind. Watamote is an anime that really feeds into the fact that everyone will like different things for different reasons, because despite its pretty poor My Anime List score, I fucking love this show. Now, the show isn't all that special. It follows a fair few tropes and can feel just lazily written at times. But I like this show because I like this show. Wait a minute. I like this show because of its depictions of anxiety, in particular social anxiety. Although not very realistic, felt like a nice breather that is the reality of anxiety because, wow, he knew it. I had that. Lucky me. I like its mostly sarcastic but somewhat serious tones in certain scenes. Watamote goes into the B tier. A lot of people would disagree with me, but I don't care. Weathering with You is an anime that a lot of people told me was a little bit of a worse version of Your Name, but it wasn't. If anything, it was better. But to be honest, I can't remember much about it. I just remember that it was good. B tier. Welcome to the NHK is another rewatch for me, just like Cowboy Bebop, but for no particular reason, because I had already given it a 10 out of 10. It's just a perfect show for me. But either way, I still love this show. I love the comedy, how mental health it's depicted, all the characters, everything about the show has come together to make it one of my favorite anime of all time. S tier for Sato and his porn addiction.
But that means if I click on the next one...
Watakoi, Love is Hard for Otaku is, again, just another fucking generic anime that gave me less stimulation than a sloppy handjob. It's really just not special, not good, not bad, just kind of C tier. Oshi-no is again another anime from the year 2023, and another anime that is really fucking good. Its premise, characters, animation, and plot twists are all very well done and deserve all the hype it's gotten and retained. I'll chuck it in the A tier. Zone 100 is probably my favorite anime that aired in 2023. It's just fucking insane. The animation is great, all the characters are super interesting, and the plot, well, it's not that much different to a lot of zombie anime, but it's still really good. The comedy in Zone 100 is up there for some of the best in any anime, because guess what? It's actually kind of funny. Properly laughable funny for me personally. On top of that, how each scene is composed is just fucking brilliant. Every serious or intense scene, especially in the first episode, is composed to really show, not tell, how the character is feeling. And as someone studying shit like videography and photography, I can really appreciate that. The only negative I have with the show is that they stopped making episodes for ages, but then started again. That's not anyone's fault but the studios, by the way. The animators, if they have, could have been run ragged and given an impossible start to air date. Zone 100 goes into the A tier, and that's it. 100 anime, or at least close to. If I'm like 5 off, don't complain. At the start of 2023, I didn't specifically set out to watch 100 anime just to make this video. It's more that all I watch now is anime and YouTube. But in all seriousness, I really do love anime, and it really has helped me in a lot of aspects in my life. So to anyone involved in the creation of any anime, and to those who made it this far, thanks to you too for watching the video. It really does mean a lot to me, and I hope to be doing this for as long as I can. That's all, and I'll see you later. Cheers.